Hello. Okay, so we're just going to go over what happens to you if you are, say, 62, 63, 64, you're on Social Security disability, and you get ceased in a CDR, continuing disability review. Now we have a different video clearing up the myth that you can't get CDR'd over 60. Just not true. So what happens if you do get CDR'd and you get ceased based on the step within that says you are no longer medically disabled under the rules? And remember, you can have impairments and you can lack the evidence that you are still fully disabled from those impairments. That often happens in the CDR if someone stopped treating, stopped following up, stopped going to their doctors. So there's no longer any indication that those problems are significant and impeding your functioning. Okay, so this happens to you based on medical improvement findings by the SSA. What happens? Of course, it's very hard to go from receiving Social Security disability, which was equivalent of your full retirement amount, to now having nothing. And the question is, what happens if you file for early retirement then? Well, precisely what would happen if you filed for early retirement at any other time. You get your early retirement and you have the applicable discounted amount received. You're not going to get your full retirement amount because you're taking it early. It's no different than anything else. Just follow the logical steps. You know, just because you were used to getting the full amount from disability, since you're no longer disabled, why would that even be an issue? The nice part about it, if there is any kind of silver lining, is that you didn't have to take early retirement at 62 because you were still on Social Security disability through, say, 64. So you're not going to get discounted on any of that time period, obviously, because you weren't collecting early retirement. You were collecting disability. But in 64, you get ceased, you decide to take early retirement instead of, say, getting a part-time job or working more, so you don't have to take early retirement. Of course, you're probably saying, but I'm actually still disabled and I can't work. They just found me not disabled. I get that, and that's got to be frustrating. It makes me think that maybe you stopped going to the doctors and developing that evidence that we're always saying that you kind of have to keep it up when you're collecting. Your option is to file for early retirement or go back to work, or one or the other or both, but you can also refile for disability. You would have to basically prove it all again, but you might get those things covered. So let's say you decide to take the early retirement because you have no choice and you are sure you cannot work enough to sustain yourself without. So you take the early retirement, you also file for disability again, and using potentially the date that you were ceased. But you better make sure you're hustling it to the doctors and confirming all these limitations. And I mean, look at some of the videos on not just going for the one that hurts you the most. Look at the videos on treating or following up for all impairments. Big, small, little, the ones that you feel the most, the ones that you don't. Hands, fingers, toes, everything. And you can refile. And then if they agree with you that you now have presented the evidence that maybe they didn't have on CDR for the relevant time period, which would likely be the day after they ceased you, found you not disabled going forward, they can then find you disabled. And remember, you get retro up to 12 months of payments prior to the date of application. So that can cover all that time period that you took early retirement, and then switch it retroactively. They're going to give you the difference. So the early retirement amount you got will now be boosted for all those months you got the early retirement, and now you have received basically the same thing you did before. But again, you have to treat. If this has happened to you, it's because most likely you weren't treating, you weren't following up. Okay, so yeah, you're going to be stuck with a early retirement amount, not a full retirement, just because you're used to full disability amount. All right, ciao.